So this is a revision PPT for the marketing plan. Now there are different ways in which we can write a marketing plan. If you were to search the Google, do a Google search, you would find different templates, different ways in which you can write it. So there's no one right way in that way. And therefore I'm going to use Kotler's marketing plan as the backdrop, or the Kotler structure that he has given for a marketing plan for explaining marketing plan in this PPT. So if you look at the marketing plan given by Kotler, he divides the marketing plan into 4 components: the executive summary, the situation analysis, marketing strategy, and financial projections. Let's look at each one of them. The first one is the executive summary. Now this is typically a gist of the whole marketing plan which is given, or a summary, and this is typically written for the top management who doesn't have time to go through the entire plan, but by reading the summary they give a complete idea of what the plan is about. Later on they may want to view specific parts of your plan, but this is definitely the summary. Now though it is given at the beginning, I would always advise an executive summary should be written at the end, because that's where you're probably summing up your whole plan. The next is situation analysis. Now while going through the first part, I'm also going to make a reference to Kotler's marketing plan for Sonic 1000, where Sonic 1000 is a state-of-the-art multimedia smartphone, and it differentiates itself with a unique combination of advanced features and functionality as given in the executive report or executive summary. So situation analysis, as you can see, has 5 parts. The first one is a market summary. So Sonic gives a market summary of the smartphone market, that the entire market, the share of the growth of the market, the different products there. We would also talk about PESTLE, which is a macro environment in which your product or your product offering works. It's not specifically given in the plan given here by Kotler, but it's definitely important to do a macro environment analysis, which giving important implications that your product has from a political or economic, social, technological, legal perspective. So that would be one way of wanting to analyze it. The third would be competitive analysis. So Sonic definitely in its marketing plan talks about competition and gives an analysis of its competition, especially competing products given by Samsung, Apple, Motorola, Nokia, and BlackBerry. Right? So it gives a complete analysis of the competing products of all these companies. Then given this now that we have given the scenario, we understand the need gap and what our product offering offers. So it does tell about Sonic's own product offering, what it offers different from the competition, what sort of benefit it is satisfying. So there's a mention of that in the situation analysis, and a SWOT analysis is also done. So I'm sure you've gone through a SWOT analysis. So this is an analysis of our internal and external strengths, rather the internal environment and the external environment, where we look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So Sonic talks about the strength of its product, the weakness of its product. It then talks about the opportunity that is there in the market, and also the threat that it faces from competition. The third element is the marketing strategy, which is, you can say, is the most important part of the whole plan. So in marketing strategy, we start with the target group, where you can see that Sonic puts down the main segments that it is targeting. In fact, Sonic is doing a multi-segment targeting. It has students, corporates, entrepreneurs, medical users. So it mentions the different segments that it is going to target. So that's what the target group would signify. It then of course gets down to positioning, where the positioning statement is given by Sonic here. In this case, Sonic positions itself as the most versatile, convenient, value-added model for personal and professional use, and it is value priced with value priced multiple communication, entertainment and information capabilities which differentiate itself from competition. So the positioning differentiates, shows your differentiation. Then you state down the objectives of your marketing strategy. In this case, Sonic lays down the objectives for the first 2 years, where it talks about the number of sales that it would be doing. Now once the positioning and the objectives are set, we now get into the product strategy, a deeper analysis, or deeper we go into the product. An important thing to differentiate here is product features and benefits, because we should understand the features of the product and how these features translate into benefits for the target group. So Sonic, in fact, there's an entire table here which talks about each of the segments and the benefits and the features that are aimed at each of these segments. Then it gets into pricing strategy. So value priced strategy is that what is used by Sonic here, and the whole idea is to reflect a strategy of attracting desirable channel partners and taking share from established competitors, and therefore then it actually puts down the price. The next is distribution strategy, where you can see that Sonic focuses on electronic retail chains and online retailers. So it gives a list of the retail chains that it is targeting and the websites, which online retailers that it would be partnering with. They then communication comes in, where the product would illustrate the different ways in which communication strategy is done. So Sonic here broadly talks about both the push and the pull strategy. There's an advertising agency to work out the pull strategy, and therefore there is both above the line and below the line advertising involved. But on the other side, there's also a push strategy, which is basically targeting the channel partners and the retailers. So that's also illustrated here. Now after the communication comes the action plan. Now here it's marketing mix, but I have called it the action plan, and this is an important step because it puts down what exactly is going to be done, the action that's going to be done for the next 6 months or 1 year. In Sonic's case, he is given 6 months over here, and it gets into detail on what exactly is being achieved and needs to be done each month. So that's a detailed action plan that you can go through, which is over here, which is based on obviously the discussion that was happened in the communication plan. The fourth section is the financial projections part. So there are multiple things that we can look at. The marketing budget definitely needs to be calculated. There's a sales forecast is done. The cost per acquisition can be calculated. A break-even analysis is done. Now you can see that when you do a break-even analysis, apart from the marketing team, there are inputs needed from other teams as well. So probably the finance team can help here in calculating break-even analysis and ROI. Okay, now I will explain the marketing plan with a sample marketing plan. Okay, so this sample marketing plan is that of a business school which is called Hogwarts Business School. Now the college mentioned in this is a disclaimer, by the way. The college mentioned in this plan is fictitious and a product of the author's imagination. Any resemblance of this to any actual college is purely accidental or coincidental. Okay, so with that disclaimer, let me also say that this gives a broad overview of the marketing plan. There's a lot more detail that one can go into, but I'm obviously, as a PPT, I wouldn't be able to go into so many details, but it definitely would help you in understanding what a marketing plan should contain, right? So the background of this is that 5 people from the IIMs, they are starting a business school, and this business school is being started in Bangalore. So here is a situational analysis of the business school, which is Hogwarts Business School. and which is going to be launched right in this year, that is in 2018. Okay, it's going to start in 2018 July. So we're starting with the situation analysis, and as we saw, the first is market summary. So what would a market summary contain of? One, we look at what is the total number of MBA graduates passing a year. That's 4 plus, okay. More than 4 lakh MBA graduates passing every year. 2 lakh graduates, 2 lakh students write CAT. We have 5,000 plus B schools in India, around 250 plus B schools in Bangalore. The fees in B schools vary from, let's say, 2 lakh to 15 lakh for a 2-year MBA program, and the number of B school applicants is one of the factors. When we look at the growth of this particular market, it's not that great because the number of B school applicants is not increasing significantly, and in fact you find that the supply is more than demand. And but having said that, you also find that only 10% of institutions are decent quality. So this is a brief market summary. We can go a lot more into detail. So this gives a picture of the MBA B school scenario in the country. So that's the first part of a marketing plan. So next we need to look at the macro environment of the product, and the product here is of course a B school. So when we look at the macro environment, we find that it's a highly regulated environment. The IICT is a main body which gives approval to B schools. We find that there's a nexus between politicians and educational institutions. A lot of the higher educational institutions are actually politicians are involved with them. We also see that there are a number of alternatives available to students that today are not only going for an MBA but going for banking jobs, going for jobs, going probably law. There are a lot of alternatives that students have. We also find a scenario where the fees in B schools is increasing rapidly, whereas the average salaries have not grown at the same rate. And the placements in B schools, if you look over the last few years, the placement in B schools have taken a hit. This has been due to the economic slowdown. Having said that, there is a new startup culture which has grown, so opportunities have grown in startup. There's been a growth in e-commerce, so yes, a few new jobs have been created in the e-commerce sector. So these are positive things which have been positive changes. These are changes in the environment which has been positive for the B school environment. Now is the competitor analysis. You have a product, you need to do an extensive competitor analysis. So in this particular example, I'm keeping it pretty limited. So I'm using a research of CRISIL to understand the competitor environment. So there are, as we saw earlier, you could say that there are 3,500 plus MBA institutions, of which you can divide them into Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 and Tier 4. So this data gives the breakup, the percentage of institutions in each of these tiers. They give the occupancy rate, the annual salary or the placement record of most of these packages given in these institutions, the number of students that are placed in each of the institutions, and the fees average. So this is the sort of competitive environment, and in detail the analysis should also include second tier, because as I said, this is being done in Bangalore, or you're looking at the Bangalore market. So a detailed analysis is required of second tier institutions such as Christ, IFIM, IBS, ISME, Alliance. So these are colleges which a detailed analysis needs to be done. Now, given the background of the market summary and the competition, we find that there is a lack of good B schools in Tier 2 and 3 categories. And the fees in these colleges typically high, but the placements are pretty average. The data shows that. And the companies from, and on one side we have, on one side there's the students, and on one side there's the corporate or the companies. And we also find that companies that are which hire from the Tier 2, 3 B schools, especially from the 4 to 6 lakh packages, are pretty unhappy with the quality of students in terms of attitude, skills, and knowledge. So this is a gap in the market, which is definitely what Hogwarts Business School is trying to address, or this is where it sees the opportunity. So what is the product offering? Hogwarts aims at becoming a Tier 2 institution which provides good quality education at an affordable price. Okay, and that's a good ROI. And two, it aims to train students. I mean, this is taking perspective with the corporate side. It aims to train students to fit frontline managerial roles offered by companies, and hence create management graduates that match up to the expectations of the corporate market. So this is the basic offering that Hogwarts Business School has in mind. Now we're going to do a SWOT analysis for Hogwarts. We start with the internal analysis, which is the strength and weaknesses of our product. On one side, yes, the strength is we have an IM team and there are faculty from top B schools. The pricing is definitely what is a big factor over here. That is a strength, and a very focused and unique curriculum, right? On a weakness, yes, the B school is just starting and therefore there is a lack of brand awareness. The money involved, obviously starting the infrastructure is not that great, so that's definitely seen as a weakness. Now we come to the external analysis of SWOT, which is the opportunities and threats. Here I'm just mentioning a few. I think, as I said earlier, you can go in a lot of details, but this is just to give you, a feel of how it's done. The opportunity, yes, we saw there's a lack of good quality B schools in Tier 2 and Tier 3. But from the threat side, yes, we see the supply is greater than the demand, and hence B schools are shutting down. So with this, we come to the end of the situation analysis, and we're going to start the marketing strategy. In marketing strategy, we are going to look at TG, positioning, objectives, product, pricing, distribution, communication, and action plan. So in the marketing plan, we are defining the TG that Hogwarts Business School is looking at, and this is what it would be, looks like. A, students who missed out in getting a good or obtaining an admission in a top Tier B school due to less scores in competitive exams, but who are looking for a good option in Tier 2. So typically a 50 to 75 percentile in CAT or 80 plus percentile in MAT. Students who are looking for value for money education, and the students who may have a bad academic scores, were not able to write competitive exams but have a spark in them. And you can also see that there's a lot of focus on students from second tier cities. So this is the sort of segment that Hogwarts Business School is targeting. Next is the positioning. I think from the product offering, it's clear that the positioning of Hogwarts Business School is a second tier B school with the best ROI in Bangalore, right? So this is clearly, it's standing out in terms of ROI. That's the biggest differentiator from all other competition, especially in the business school, second tier business schools in Bangalore. So that stands out at the positioning. Now, given this as we've done the segmentation and the positioning, now we set the objectives for the marketing strategy. So the B school is just starting. So the objective is, in its first year, is to get an admission of 60 students. And it's pretty plain and simple objective. So now, given this background, let's look at the 4 P's. Product. Now, here we get into a little more detail in detailing of the product, what it consists. We need to understand here that this is a service, and service is usually described as 7 P's, right? 4 P's plus there are 3 other P's, which is physical evidence, the process, and the people. But here I'm not getting into that. I'm just restricting ourselves to the 4 P's. So because the physical evidence will definitely talk about the infrastructure and things like that, but I'm just focusing on the product. So we can see that the curriculum is based on the ASK approach, which is attitude, skill, and knowledge. So this is clearly taken from the feedback from corporate, and a system is developed, okay, including the evaluation that focuses on developing the right attitude and skills. So this is where I'm saying it has a unique curriculum. So there are things in the system which is a metrics based on attitude. There is a special training in skills such as selling skill, IT skills, presentation skills, group skills, and different skills are there being trained, especially And this is where the curriculum becomes different and clearly focuses on both attitude and skills. We also have a unique mentorship program. The college has a very unique mentorship program where students are mentored both by internal mentors and external mentors. We then have faculty from, now one of the differentiators in the product is the faculty are all from top B schools, and they have a minimum of work experience of 5 years. So you don't find the traditional PhD faculty here, but we find more faculty with work experience. That's what is here. And the campus placements of 5 lakh per annum. That's also part of the product offering. So though at one side we look at the features, we look at what are the benefits gained by the student. Yes, there is an ROI, so the student now develops the right attitude to work. He develops the right skills, the confidence, the personality. These are all benefits that the student gains from this particular product, plus the campus placement, which gives him one of the best return on investments. So this is basically the product in a nutshell. Next is pricing. The pricing strategy is good value pricing, and keeping this in mind, keeping the competition in mind, the pricing of Hogwarts is at 5 lakhs for the 2-year program. Distribution, it's a service. The college will be located in only one place, which will be in Bangalore. There are no other other branches. And as I said, in physical evidence, you can get into the infrastructure which is there and get into more detailing on that, which I'm not doing it over here. So then I get into the communication strategy. So the main tools which would be used in communication would be direct marketing, digital marketing, and ground level activities such as seminars in colleges and coaching classes. And the communication would be aimed at the basic aim would finally be to pitch to 5,000 interested students and expecting a 10% of the interested students to apply to the college, and finally a 1% conversion from the original number of 5,000. So that would result in 50 students. So that's the aim of the communication strategy. So now let's get into detail and let's look at the action plan. So here I'm going to list the action plan for 3 months, not 6 months. So if we look at January, we are going to look at conducting around 10 seminars. As you can see, we are looking at a set number of cities. We are looking at a set number of students, a minimum number of students attending each seminar. We're also they're also planning to come out with at least 2 quarter-page advertisements in leading newspapers in each of the 5 cities. So that's print ads. Then, as we said earlier, meeting coaching classes, distributing advertising material, because these are places where your potential TG is constantly visiting or going to or preparing for an MBA. So this is the place where you would be wanting to communicate with them. And we would also start a digital marketing campaign with SEO and advertising on Facebook. So this would be the first initiative in the first month, would be trying to build traffic to the college website. In the second month, again, there's a set number of seminars which have been targeted at. There's advertising in magazines of coaching centers, a few leading business magazines like Business World. A couple of advertisements are going to be kept. Now, direct marketing now would start here, where there would be a MAT, because MAT would definitely usually happen, let's say, in the month of Feb. Now, assuming that it happened a little earlier, the MAT database is used to do direct selling, where we have a set of telecallers calling up the students, and they would be reaching out to 2,000 students, to start with in the first month, where they would be pitching about the college to the students. And on the digital marketing front, they would be continuing with SEO and advertising on Facebook. So as you can see, we're getting down to actual numbers, and we're trying to quantify the action plan each month. In March, again, a series of advertisements happen in leading newspapers. A plan for 20 seminars. Now you can see the seminars are held again in either colleges or coaching classes. The MAT database is again used to reach out. So you have typically around 10,000 students writing a MAT exam. So when you have a database, you have a large database. And now from here, we are trying to build leads through the digital marketing. So around 200 leads through social media marketing is what we're going to try tying up with shiksha.com, which is again another online educational portal, where a lot of students register themselves. So this tie-ups done, there could be a tie-up done with shiksha.com for leads. So this is just 3 months and a set of activities that I'm putting down. You can definitely do a lot more based on the resources that you have. But this is what, action plan sort of quantifies the action that you're doing every month. The fourth area, the last area, is the financial projections. Now, I'm not doing too much of financial projections over here because, due to certain constraints. But definitely, we could look at the marketing budget. You will have to calculate the marketing budget. Now, based on the plan that was given, you can see the advertisements in leading newspaper. Okay, so that there would be the advertising cost. You're using marketing executive for the seminars, reaching out to colleges, reaching out to coaching classes. You're using marketing executive. So you're hiring 4 marketing executives, typically 1 executive in each of the cities. Then you've seen direct counseling, for which direct marketing, for which you need telecounselors. So you're hiring a set of 4 telecounselors. The digital marketing is going to be done by an agency. So you're hiring a digital agency to do your website and social media marketing, SEO. So that is definitely going to be a marketing cost. The other plan was to tie up with shiksha.com. So there's obviously a financial, a deal that has to be signed with them, so which is going to cost. So this would be briefly the marketing budget that would come from whatever I showed of the last 3 months action plan. This would be the sort of marketing budget that would come up. Of course, there is a cost on things like material. Probably I haven't mentioned it, but the material cost, which is brochures and things like that, probably standees that you may want to put, each and everything needs to be calculated in the marketing budget. We would also get into a sales forecast, which I'm not getting, where typically we would predict for 1, 2, or at least 3 years, you would predict the sales which would happen, the number of students, in this case the number of students who would be joining, and therefore when you would be looking at a break even. So obviously, when taking into break even, you take the other costs into consideration, and then you need to take that, taking all the costs into consideration, you finally calculate, okay, based on this, when I reach this many number of students in this particular year, I would break even. So that would probably, just to give a rough example, probably in the 3rd year, when I get 80 students, the calculation may show that yes, when I get 80, if I were to get 80 students in the 3rd year, I would break even. Okay.